when I was in Darshan, Swami completely ignored me. And I wanted to complain to him, and I wanted to ask him questions, and I wanted, my will should happen. And at that time, my wife and me were standing on different edges of the room, and both of us raised our hands immediately and said, yes, we will come with you. And then we looked at each other and said, did you just say you are going to join her? And the professor was sitting on my bedside, and he said, I have two news for you, one bad one and one good one. It happened that I asked her in between, how do you manage? Where do you get this power from? And she simply answered, well, I have found my teacher for this lifetime, and this gives me so much strength that that I can handle everything. Go there, go there, go there.
Welcome to Love is the Path, a special podcast series that invites you to journey down memory lane as we relive the cherished world conferences and the joyous celebrations of Swami's birthdays. On today's episode, we are delighted to have Mr. Manfred Müller-Gransee, all the way from Germany. Currently, Mr. Manfred serves as the chair of Zone 7, comprising the North European countries. In this episode, he discusses his spiritual journey to Sai, the importance of a community, as well as the why. Why should we attend world conferences? Joining him in conversation is Mr. Suraj Parthasarathy from Los Angeles.
Sai Ram.
Om Sai Ram.
Well, it's such a joy to be with you, Uncle Manfred Müller-Gransee. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, Love is the Path.
It's my pleasure.
And remind me where you're speaking from?
Right now, I'm sitting in my office. I'm located in a small village near Hanover, and from there, I do my service.
Marvelous. I would love to hear, we've been asking every single one of our interviewees about just their upbringing, their childhood, and then their first sort of discovery of Swami, of Sathya Sai Baba. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I was brought up in a middle-class family. There was no connection to any religion, at least no deeper connection. Of course, we are born in an area where all of us are Christs, and so this was pretty much the same to me. But I didn't go to church. There was no deeper connection, and actually, there was no spiritual approach in my life. It was just a worldly life where I was brought up, and it lasted quite long until I was about 30 years old. And at that time, I was married already, and I was married for 10 years. And then the very first difficulties came up, and we were thinking about, well, what can we do now? We can divorce and try, give it another try with another woman, which would probably end up in the same situation. So we were thinking about doing something for our partnership. And it ended up in a seminar for men and women. And that was the title of the seminar. And the interesting thing about it was that the conductor was handicapped. She was one of these Kontergan children, which means she had no arms. She had just some fingers right on her shoulder, and that was all. But she was full of power and full of light and full of love, and she was always smiling. And so it happened that I asked her in between, how do you manage? Where do you get this power from? And she simply answered, well, I have found my teacher for this lifetime, and this gives me so much strength that I can handle everything. But this is another story, because she was a Sai devotee, which we didn't know at that time. But to cut things short, at the end of the second seminar, she said, well, I'm going to India for Christmas and for New Year's Eve. And usually I take some people with me who are interested. And if anybody of you is interested, then I could offer you to join my little group. And at that time, my wife and me were standing on different edges of the room, and both of us raised our hands immediately and said, "Yes, we will come with you." And then we looked at each other and said, "Did you just say you are going to join her?" And so we were a little bit puzzled, but we thought, well, we have been to Africa, we have been all over Europe, we have been to the United States, but we haven't touched the Asian continent. Probably it would make sense to join this little group just to get acquainted to the country. And then after 2 or 3 days, we split off and then we make a round tour through India on ourselves. And what she did was she went with us straight to Puttaparthi. So we ended up in the ashram in the main road in front of the accommodation office, not knowing where we are and what to do there, just like someone who is dropped out of an airplane with a parachute and landing in Swami's ashram. And and that's already the story how spirituality came into our life, because we were there, and on the third day we were called for an interview. And after this third day, our whole life changed. That was the beginning of my story. And it is a story of its own because there is much more in the background, which is not the topic today. So up to that moment, I didn't think of anything which is combined with religion or with spirituality. But there, my spiritual journey started, and that was in the year 1989. So it is 36 years now.
Wow. That what an incredible story. 3 days in, interview. Incredible. I'm curious if you could. It would be so interesting to hear about just day to day how you felt your life had changed after you had this sort of spiritual experience and felt that this was going to be a meaningful part of your life.
Okay. Beforehand, it was simply the life was mainly to deal with the things that are necessary in order to lead a regular life. So you focused on earning money, you focused on having a nice home, you focused on having a good relationship to the neighbors, and all these things that are quite normal. And afterwards, of course, I started to ask myself questions. So it might be confusing, but because I was more than 30 years old, but that only at that time I started to ask myself these questions like, well, but where do I come from? Why am I here on Mother Earth? What is my duty here? And this changed completely the inner attitude towards life. And the outer effect was that, for example, I lost quite a number of friends who were not interested in these kind of questions. And I was not interested any longer in just speaking about the next football match or the next party we are going to organize or anything like that. So it changed the whole attitude towards life, and that was quite a big step, of course. But when I came back from this first visit, my interest was, well, there must be some people who have been with Swami already. I can't be the only German one. And then I found out that there is a Sathya Sai organization in Germany. And I immediately joined, and I immediately felt this heart-opening effect that when I came to their first meeting, I suddenly had the feeling, well, these are my brothers and sisters, and this is where I belong to. This is the community I was looking for without knowing that I was looking for them. And well, and then a completely different priorities came into my life. So this is basically what happened at that time.
No, it's so special to hear you talk about it like this because I think number one, it resonates for so many other people who have had a similar experience, and then it also you talk about the responsibility of once you know that this is something that's meaningful, then there's the responsibility to do something about it and to make those
Yeah,
changes. And I
yeah.
think sometimes that also requires some amount of courage as well to do that.
Yes, of course, because you have to leave your comfort zone, at least what you thought that this is the frame where your life should take place. And
Mm.
in this comfort zone suddenly falls together like a house built of cards. You just tip on one of the cards and everything falls, claps together, and then you have to look for something new. And of course, everything that is, first of all, unknown and strange frightens you in a way. And on the other hand, you get this power, you get this strength when you have met Swami. You suddenly know, but this is what I have to do, and this is exactly what I felt when I came back home. And in fact, it was not 2 months after our trip to India that we opened up our own Sathya Sai group. And yeah, and from there it started.
Yes, well, you've given me the perfect segue because I was just going to ask you about, you know, getting involved within the organization itself and what that would lead to. But it seems like that was a very natural process of, okay, this is the next step for me to have a center so that we're able to find this community of people in the place I'm in. And then you went on to sort of hold all of these various positions. I know we'll get to talking about the World Conferences, but just tell me what that was like to take on some of those responsibilities as well, of not just being this outsider who hears about Swami and hears this message and is inspired, but then also feels compelled to, whether it's to do service, seva, or to try to share experiences. What did that feel like for you in Germany in particular, I suppose?
Well, actually, as I mentioned already, I went to the very first. It was not a national meeting; it was a regional meeting in Germany, in the northern part of Germany. And when I came there, I mentioned it already. I had the feeling, oh, these are my brothers and sisters. And of course, there were quite a lot of side talks. That we had a program, but on this weekend I used the chance to have quite a lot of side talks. And already there, I had the feeling, well, okay, what they tell you is, oh, it is so nice to be with Swami, and I go to India every year when I can afford it in order to recharge my batteries. And already at this very first meeting, I had the feeling, but this is not me. I don't have to go to India in order to recharge my batteries. I'm not the one who has to get pampered. I'm not the one who is in a desperate need of getting something. Already at that moment, I had the feeling, but I have everything is with me, and when I understood my first understanding of the teachings of Swami, the thing that thrilled me most were the five human values. And I felt the obligation, well, if there is anything useful I have to do in this lifetime, then it is to bring these five human values into practice, and not only for me but together with others. And that was one of the motivations to look for other Sai devotees near the place where I was living, and to open up a center in order to come together and then to do something for Swami. So it was always my intention to put something into practice and not to sit there and say, well, okay, please give me and make me and help me and do for me. it is just the other way around. But this might be in combination with with my personal structure, because the worldly life, on the other hand, I was always self-employed. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a doer. I'm someone who takes the responsibility and wants to make something out of it, and not just being an employee and sit there and wait for somebody telling me what I have to do next and what I have to do the other day. So this is probably my personal structure.
I think that it's so interesting because one of the wonderful things about Swami is that he's kind of laid all of these different paths that someone can take to reach the same place. I would love to ask you about, you talked about not necessarily needing to go to India and not having to have this experience, but I know that you've attended some of the world conferences. Do you have a recollection of the first one, or just any experience that you had there at that first one, and then we'll talk more about the rest.
I do. So first of all, just to finish that one, right in the first years, I didn't go to India every year. I only went there when Swami called me, when there was this inner voice telling me, now it is time for you to come. And I tell you this because it's important in connection with the coming world conferences. So I only went there when I had the feeling Swami called me, and whenever I went there, some major things happened. So Swami put me into a sort of program, and whenever I was there, I knew the next step is necessary, the next step for me to do in my development. And these were some hard times. He gave me some really hard times. These were really challenges. And so it was far away from, oh, I go there in order to reload my batteries or anything like that. No, it was always a very tough time when I was in India. At that time, when we started our group and center, we didn't have personal computers. We didn't have an iPhone next to us. The only communication we had with the international level or even with the national level was we received a letter once a month containing the Sanatana Sarati and probably some other information. That was all. Slowly, the things developed. I took over different responsibilities. And in the year 2005, they approached me in order to be the next national coordinator of Germany. And in 2005, there was a world conference taking place. And we had a pre-world conference in Rome. And that was the very first time that I was invited to an event on the international level. That this was international for me to go to Rome, because it was I think it was a combined pre-world conference of Zone 7 and Zone 6.
Okay.
And this was quite interesting. It was the very first time that I joined one of these very, very big meetings. And at that time, I mean, it was still the time where many, many devotees were here in Northern and Southern Europe. And so I went to Rome, not knowing what I'm going to expect. And there were quite a lot of different things I had to experience. It was the very first time that I really understood how this organization functions. And that was quite a big step, and it was quite a big experience for me. So I didn't attend the World Conference 2010, but then in 2015, that was actually when I was already part of the Prashanti Council meetings, and that means that at that time it started that I went to Prashanti twice a year because I felt it was my duty, because then I was a central coordinator and I was there for Guru Purnima and I was there for Swami's birthday. And in 2015, love is the source, love is the path, love is the goal. I was invited to give a talk. And that thrilled me, of course, because they gave me the opportunity to speak about spirituality in real life with the special focus on management. And in 2015, I was running my own company already for 10 years. And I was fortunate because I bought it together with a friend who was also a Sai devotee. And so from the very first moment, we took the decision that we are going to build up this company on the base of the five human values. So we don't wanted this separation any longer, being a part-time devotee in our spare time, but in our professional life, leading a worldly life and hiding away that we are Swami devotees. What was the most important for me, I wanted to have that in my professional life as well. So I had quite a lot of experience in building up a company based on five human values, and now
That's
I was
marvelous.
invited to this world conference, to the 10th World Conference, coming along with Swami's 90th birthday, and they gave me the opportunity to speak about spiritual management. Wow,
Mm.
what a chance! And this was this was something very, very interesting for me and fulfilling for me. And I'm quite aware of the situation that we gathered in the university in the Audimax there, and that Alex was the one to announce me to step forward and come on stage and then to give my talk. And
Mm.
I was happy. I was happy. I had the feeling that this was pure bliss coming from Swami, that I had the opportunity to speak about my experiences.
Yes, it's so interesting. Tell me, if I have it right, that this 2015 World Conference, there was also an orchestra. I
Yes.
would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was of course that was interesting for me because the Sai Symphony Orchestra, it was conducted by Dr. Michael Köhler, and he's German.
Mm.
And most of the musicians came from Germany. And so this was, of course, well, now we have something to give. We are suddenly on the most important stage of the world. They perform in Sai Kulwand Hall, and
Amazing.
they come from Germany. This is fantastic.
Mm.
And actually, we had the situation that I think it was 3 years later that the Sai Symphony Orchestra, especially with those special guests, they had these fantastic musicians coming from India or Sri Lanka. All of them came to Germany, and we had a Sai Symphony Orchestra
Wow.
performance in one of the theaters here in Germany, and
Oh,
it was a huge success. And I thought, well, this is how Swami manages it. From India, it goes back into the different continents in order to reach out to the rest of the world. So uh,
that's
this World Conference 2015 is the one that is most in my memory. That was most important for me.
In commemoration of the 90th year of the advent of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, the Sathya Sai International Organization hosted the 10th World Conference in November 2015 with one powerful theme: Love is the source, love is the path, love is the goal. Preparations began over a year in advance with study circles and 16 pre-world conferences held across the world. The conference welcomed nearly 900 delegates from about 80 countries. Across 3 inspiring days, delegates listened to keynote speeches, personal stories of transformation, and reflections on living Bhagavan's teachings in daily life. A special panel with members of the Prashanti Council offered guidance on spiritual discipline, selfless service, and the future of the Sai's mission. A key highlight was the graduation of the first Sathya Sai International Youth Leadership Program, empowering young leaders with value-based training. Delegates also engaged in 9 hands on workshops exploring practical ways to express love in thought, word, and deed. Colorful cultural performances showcased traditions from around the world, while a vibrant international exhibition highlighted the service, education, and spiritual activities across the world. On the final evening, conference resolutions were presented 32 action items across 9 core areas, providing a roadmap to further strengthen centers, leadership outreach, communication, and selfless service worldwide. Delegates returned home inspired and deeply touched by Bhagavan's presence, carrying a renewed commitment to his message. Because through every talk, workshop, performance, and smile, one truth echoed clearly: love is the source, love is the path, and love is the goal.
Tell me a little bit about you had sort of a health setback at some point. I have this in my notes about you being in the ICU at one point and how this was sort of a life-changing moment. I was wondering if you would feel comfortable speaking about that at all.
Okay, I mentioned already that whenever I went to Puttaparthi, it was to that Swami wanted to do me the next step towards him. And I would say in the first 10 years, besides the fact that he was the most important part of my life, I was still struggling with him. I was still fighting with him. And this is because I don't dare to say I still have, but I had a very, very strong ego. And basically it was the fight that was my will may happen or his will may happen. So one of these trips to India, it was I took a group of devotees coming from our center with me, and it turned out that we were a group of 11, 10 of them women, and me, the only man. And in addition to that, I was the only one speaking a proper English. So I felt responsible for this group. This was my group, and I was taking them with me to Sathya Sai Baba. So, and this journey started with the situation that we came to the accommodation office, and we were told that we have to go into the sheds. And I was embarrassed, and I said, well, listen, we come from Germany. I have my group. They are here for the very first time. You should give us a nice room where we can stay. And they just sent us to the sheds. And I felt responsible, and I said to these ladies, "Oh, don't worry, I will take care." So every day I lined up in front of accommodation office in order to get a better situation for us. And either shortly before it was my turn, they closed down the windows because the next darshan was coming up, or they said, why are you here again? You have your rooms in the shed, so just go away. And at the same time, when I was in darshan, Swami completely ignored me. And I wanted to complain to him, and I wanted to ask him questions, and my will should happen. And this was the only time where I was for 2 or 3 weeks, I don't even remember, in Puttaparthi without even having the chance to get one look from Swami, or without experiencing him coming closer to me. He completely ignored me. And I was frustrated. And on the last day when we had to go back home, I started to get fever. And when we were sitting in the plane from Bangalore to Bombay, I was shivering, and I had fever, and I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, I got a flu or anything like that. So we arrived in Bombay. we got the message that our plane to Europe was broken. And there was huge turmoil on the airport and everybody was complaining. My wife and me were lucky because we got a plane to Italy, to Rome. The moment I was in the airplane, my fever started again. And when we arrived in Rome, fever was finished. Then our baggage got lost and we said, okay, we don't care. Hopefully we get back home. So we got another flight to Hanover. The moment I was in the plane, my fever came up again. And the moment that we reached Hanover, it was fine. So we could travel to the final destination, to my home. And it was late in the evening. And in that night, the fever went up to more than 40 degrees. And my wife put some wet blankets on my body just to cool me down. And then in the morning, I had to go to a doctor where I fainted 2 times. And then they took me to hospital. And these fever periods, they increased. So there was always an hour or two where I had no fever, and then there was a period where the fever went up to 40 degrees, and this went on for several days. And I had the feeling it must be something different, and I insisted on being on the department for inner diseases, and when I came there, they said, we can't find out anything because you are full of antibiotics, and this makes it quite difficult to analyze what the reason is.
Right.
And then it got even worse, and it was a Christian hospital, so I had a room of my own. It was an old building, 3 meter or 4 meter in height. And it was completely white walls and just one bed standing there. And I was still fighting. I mean, whenever I had no fever, I said, "Yeah, but I can cover that. It is no problem." And then the next fever came, and then actually it went worse that much that they called my wife and said, well, okay, you should look for a place in the Tropic Institute in Hamburg because they are specialized on tropic diseases because we simply can't find out what it is. So she managed to get a place in Hamburg, and then they said, sorry, we can't transport him any longer. He won't survive the transport from Hanover to Hamburg. And at that time, I had lost my consciousness already. So I had fainted, and I had to be put to the intensive care unit. And they told my wife, better is you come this evening once again in order to say goodbye because we don't believe that he's going to survive this night. So I was lying there on IC unit, and in that night at 2 o'clock I suddenly woke up. And I remember it very clearly. I was lying there in bed, and I was sitting up, and I said, with tears running out of my eyes, okay, Swami, I surrender. I surrender. I can't stand it I can't fight you any longer, because I had the strange feeling that it was all about who is taking the decisions, who is the stronger one? Is it my will that is going to happen, or is it your will going to happen? So it was a question of surrender. And I said, I surrender. You have won. You have won. I can't do it. I can't do anything else any longer. I have to completely give up. And then I fainted again. And the next morning, I woke up, and the professor was sitting on my bedside. And he said, I have 2 news for you, one bad one and one good one. The good one is you survived this night, and tonight at 2 o'clock, we found out what you have. And immediately started medication, and the medication works, so you are going to survive. The bad news is we don't know yet whether there are going to be some major damages, whether there is something that we can't heal, but we are quite hopeful. And I said, well, okay, what is going to happen next? And they said, well, we simply have to go on with the medication and we have to watch you. And I said, then I want to go back to my single room. I don't want to lie here on IC unit. So they brought me back into this room, and I was sitting there on my bed. And that was the first time that I realized, I mean, I had been in this room already for 3 days or something like that before. There was a little frame on the wall. It was no bigger than this. It was a small wooden frame, and a psalm was written in it. And it said, this is my joy, that I can rely on you and put my fortune into your hands. And the moment that I read this psalm, tears were coming down my eyes, and I was crying for several days, and I couldn't stop, because then I realized what surrender really means. It was all about this, that I had to give up this strong ego in order to be ready to really fulfill Swami's will. And this was the most important lesson I had to learn, combined with one of my journeys to Puttaparthi. And the outcome was that whenever I went to Puttaparthi afterwards, there was always a lesson prepared for me, and it was no matter what happened in the outside. I remember we had this educational conference. I don't know the year. I think it was 2008 or something like that, or 2000. I don't know. And I was the MC of one of the days in this educational conference. And on the next day, I was sitting in the first row there of the audience, and there was another speaker in front of us. And suddenly I recognized Swami was coming in, and I got a new information, and tears were running down my eyes. This was what always happened, that when I had this very close contact, that I couldn't stop crying. And I was sitting there as one of the representatives of this Prashanti Council meeting in the very first row, sitting there crying and crying and crying. And I had to run out of Purnachandra Hall, because I didn't want to offend all the other people sitting next to me. And so this is what always happens when I'm there. He always takes me by the shoulder and says, come on, guy, there is another lesson for you to learn. And so this is my relationship with Swami.
It's such a powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many things that I have to reflect on after having heard that. So that was very kind of you. And just, I think, for all of us listening, what a marvelous story about surrender. I'll just share with you one. It reminds me, actually, for a long time, the American president, John F. Kennedy, had a little plaque on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, which read, "O God, thy sea is so great, and my boat is so small."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's such a wonderful description of the scale of the universe and the scale of our ego, all in one little piece.
There is another little story combined with it. We usually have a zone 6, 7, and 8 office bearer meeting in either in Greece or in Milano, and one of these meetings was taking place in Greece. And at that time, Dr. Michael Goldstein was chair of the Prashanti Council, and he was invited, and he joined us. And I had the chance to to have a small dialogue with him where we were all alone. It was just the two of us. And I approached him and I said, Dr. Goldstein, in order to be a good office bearer, what is really needed to be a good office bearer in the Sathya Sai International Organization? And he said, you can learn everything. Once you say yes and you agree to take over a special function or position, Swami will give you everything you need and you can learn everything. The only thing you can't learn is devotion. And this was so much fitting to my life struggle with Swami that in that moment, once again, I had to leave the conference for half a day because I was so much shaken by this just one word. I can't learn it. I have to somehow I have to manage. I have to hand over to Swami. And this was the biggest task I ever had in my life. Yeah, I just wanted to add that because it were several small steps leading me to that point. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. It leads into a question I had for you about what advice you had for young adults in particular. I suspect that surrender and devotion have something to do with it, but I'm just curious if you had anything else that you wanted to share.
Whenever we have a meeting, a conference, or whatever, we design a special program. We design all these activities that we are going to undertake, and so on. So we have the feeling, oh, we plan it perfectly well for this target group, for this bunch of people. But what they take home with them, what is important for them in this meeting, we have absolutely no control of that. We haven't even a glimpse of what is important for them. It might be just one sentence they pick up out of one talk. It might not have anything to do with the conference or with the meeting at all. It might be a side talk they have where they suddenly get something as if Swami is talking to them. So this is something that is not in our hands. It is absolutely in the hands of Swami. And it is very, very difficult to say, oh, you simply have to do this or you simply have to do that. This is not how it functions. It has something to do with reflecting the situation that we are in when we come into contact with Swami. First of all, we are very lucky that we had the chance to meet Swami and that he came into our life and that we are aware that there is something beyond our worldly life. Yes, of course. And now it's a question of reflection. We had the chance to meet Swami. He has given us all these teachings, all these beautiful discourses where we can find all the answers to the questions that are important for us. This is the basis. Then he gave us the chance to believe in him, to have faith in him, to develop trust so that there is something bigger than ourselves. Then he gave us this beautiful organization in order to have a secure place where we can make our experiences and where we have the feeling that we are not alone, but there are some others who accompany us. And it's pretty much like going onto a very long walk. You can do that alone, but when you have some companions, you might have a bad day, and then it's good when you have someone on your right side and on your left side to drag you forward until you feel fresh again and make your own way without this help. So this is something he gave to us. And And so there are so many things he prepared for us. And then on top of this building, I often compare it with the different walls that we have. So we have the trust, we have the devotion. All of this is prepared, and then he put the five human values as a roof on top of this building. So the only thing we have to do is to open up the door and to go inside. And this is a difficult decision. I remember a story. It is about searching for God. And there is a man who spends his whole lifetime looking for God. And then he comes to a village and they tell him, well, but God is living there in that room upstairs. You just have to go up the staircases. And and he starts to go up the stairs, and he's standing in front of the door where he expects that behind the door God is living. And
Hmm.
he takes off his shoes and goes down the stairs very silently again and runs away, because he doesn't dare to open this door, because then life is over. That is what he fears. That what can happen then? Then everything is fulfilled. Then he is together with God. Nothing else is going to happen. And I think especially when we are young, and when life is waiting for us, and when there are so many attractions, and when it is so beautiful to have everything in front of yourself, not as me. I'm in this part of lifetime where just compared to the young adults, a short span is left for me. But when
Hmm.
everything is waiting for you, when a big career in the job is waiting for you, when a beautiful husband or wife is waiting for you, when children are waiting for you, when all this is there, yeah, then to decide to vote God as the very first choice. This is a big step. It is not so easy to make this step. And
No.
probably you hesitate to do it because you have the feeling that you can lose something of what is waiting for you. And at that time, what you don't know is that the moment that you open up the door, you don't lose anything. You will win everything. I mean, it will be the greatest fulfillment you can expect of life. But you have to say yes, or you have to open up this door. And and the only thing I can tell you is don't hesitate. Don't take off your shoes. Don't run away. Just just find the power and the courage to open up this door, and you are going to experience the best thing you can ever experience. And this is all you have to do. It is just like Swami beautifully says, and it is many things are very easy, uh, though they are of a tremendous meaning. I mean, he always tells us, you just have to take the very first step. I'm going to do the rest. I'm going to take the next 99 steps for you. But you
That's
have
right.
to do the very first one.
We have to
And
do the first one.
the only thing I can say to the youth is the encouragement, even the commandment, take this first step and rely on the experience of all elders, that this is the best thing you can ever do.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Uh, I know that many people are going to prepare to take that step perhaps in November at the World Conference.
Hopefully, because that is really one of the reasons why all of the youth should go there, because it is, and this is what we have not spoken about. It is another effect of this companionship is that there is a certain field of energy built up when we come together. And especially when we come together there in Riverside for a world conference, it makes it much easier to do a step towards Swami than sitting alone in your office and then your monkey mind starts thinking, well, but. And this is something which is not happening when you join these mega events because there is such a special energy that you are simply torn into it, and if you don't really fight against it, it will happen that you do the next step. And so go there, go there, go there.
That's it. We have something so wonderful to look forward to. Uncle Manfred Müller-Gransee, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your stories, and I think there's so much that people will take from this. Thank you so very much.
Pleasure. And I hope to meet all of you in Riverside in November.
I very much hope so too. Sai Ram, thank you.
Om Sai Ram.
And to end this episode, we leave you all with a snippet of Swami's divine discourse delivered on his 61st birthday. Thank you, and Jai Sai Ram.